it is quite clear in the Quran and in the Hadith that women do have a right to sexual satisfaction. I know, unfortunately, we often hear about men's sexual rights and the importance of women sexually satisfying their husbands. But what I wanted to demonstrate, not only with A Taste of Honey, but Women of Desire, that women have just as much right to sexual satisfaction as their male counterparts. Even though we may only hear about men's right to sexual satisfaction, a number of scholars, both in the Islamic jurisprudential tradition from fiqh, spoke about women's right to sexual satisfaction, so much so that if a husband isn't able to sexually satisfy his wife, she's entitled to divorce. But this is something that, again, we don't really hear about. Right. Women, issues that they may have, she's well within her right to not only speak to an expert or an authority to kind of help her deal with some issues or concerns that she's got. That was something that, again, in the early Muslim community, they didn't have these qualms that, unfortunately, that many of us have nowadays, where I think a lot of Muslims, especially, I don't like to use the word practicing, but you could say practicing Muslims, have like this idea that sex is a taboo topic, when it wasn't a taboo topic in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I think oftentimes the concept of haya, like meaning modesty, or sometimes translated as shame, is weaponized against women. So oftentimes it's used that, you've got no haya, you've got no shame if you're asking about such topics, if you're speaking about such topics. And rather than argue with such people, especially, again, if they're Muslims, if people can see the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, speaking about such matters, that hopefully will debunk the idea that women aren't entitled to sexual satisfaction, or women cannot speak about these topics, when the best of people, the best of creation, after the Prophet, peace be upon him, the companions, they had these kind of conversations in the masjid and outside the masjid. So it's something that, again, and it's something that part of the work that I'm trying to do to help, again, like I said, showing Muslims and non-Muslims alike that not only is Islam a sex-positive religion, but we also have a rich tradition of speaking about sexual satisfaction and helping people attain sexual satisfaction in their marital relationships.
I think that, something that you mentioned, which is very, very important, and it actually occurred to me today, is that, Islam 1,400 years ago had stated that, women had a right to pleasure, and that sex was not only for procreation, but also for, the satisfaction of desires and pleasure. And it's interesting because only recently, and I want to tell you that only recently pleasure was added to the teachings for sex education as early as 2019. So it was during the World Association for Sexual Health World Congress meeting in Mexico City in 2019 that they actually added pleasure to sex education. Isn't that amazing? And that was only 3 years ago? And Islam gave Muslims, or, people that ascribe to Islam, right, the right to pleasure and satisfaction 1,400 years ago. So I just thought that was really amazing, and, says a lot about our own tradition that we don't even know. And that's why actually I appreciate your book so much, because it brings to the forefront, right, all the rights given to both men and women in a marriage, and regarding sex and sexual satisfaction.